guys, FunctionBuilt-Aquatics, and today we have our Chinese mountain stream with the gobies, the guppies, and the white cloud mountain minnows.
Yeah, so we just recently added a few guppies to the colony of white cloud mountain minnows. We were able to add some common guppies and then a small group of black cobra endlers. You can actually see one of the males right there in the center. I've actually resisted in adding any other species of fish to the tank other than the gobies and the white clouds. But you know, a lot of these different endler and guppy species are now being so widespread throughout the world, so it wouldn't be uncommon to actually find them living in streams and rivers throughout not only South America but Central America and Southeast Asia. Not to mention they're just pretty damn cool. So the Chinese mountain stream actually went through a pretty big water change. We changed about 50%, which is our normal water change for this setup. But what we actually did was we trimmed up a big portion of the ficus that was blocking a lot of the light down to the bottom. So now I fully expect the Anubias and I think it's ripens to actually grow and explode rather quickly. This is our first Paludarium setup between Nathan and I. The plants are literally exploding out of the tank, and I'm trying to maintain a balance on the left. Let me back up, on the left versus the right. The right's a little bit less full, so I'll continue to keep trimming the plants down, but allowing the right side here to actually grow more. All the plants in this tank have a purpose, right, Nate?
Yep.
What's the main purpose of the plants other than just to look so cool?
Filtration?
Totally.
Yeah, the filtration from the plants, the roots just clean the tank crystal clear.
Yeah, so the plants in this tank remove not only the nitrates, but any ammonia source if there would be, which in a tank this established. This tank's actually approaching 3 years old.
Yeah.
So I think, what, December?
Yeah, it'll be, January.
No, January is the South American Paludarium.
Yeah.
But this setup in December, I think around the 15th or the 20th, and that within that range, now this tank will actually be 3 years old. Some of the white clouds that are in here will probably have been in the system for 3 years.
Yeah.
We've added some new white clouds, but for the most part, it's still the original colony. You can see a nice little bed of riccia growing right off to the side of one of the waterfalls. And I'm trying to establish a colony of riccia right there also. It's a great plant for not only coverage, but it also allows fry to hide and get away from the adults. White cloud mountain minnows and guppies prey on the fry. And I'm pretty sure that the gobies do their fair share of eating the fry themselves. Now, this tank has actually changed quite a few times in regards to water heights. When we first started this tank, how high was the water in this tank, Nate?
The height was about this high.
Yeah, it was probably close to about 3 inches of water in it. And then slowly we increased the height.
To halfway.
To right now we're about a little more than 3/4 the height now. And I actually like it at pretty much this tall. It still gives you the Paludarium effect, but also allows more water volume for the fish to actually swim and do their thing. There was a time when this tank was only 3 inches tall that they couldn't really get from one side to the other. And if you watch some of our videos from the past 2 years, this tank has evolved and changed a few times. At one point, the entire water surface was covered in what was it, frog bit?
Yeah.
And now, as you can tell, the water surface is pretty much uncovered, which is the way I like it. I like the light penetration.
No, it's covered in duckweed.
The ripens and the Anubias, and there's also an Anubis in the back. seem to be doing really well and getting the light that they need. I'm going to start trying to encourage some of the ripens to grow on this side also, which will also cover a little bit of that side and give it some more depth. You know, I'm not the best at aquascaping, but you got to remember one thing. You know, nature is not perfect. So nature doesn't say, hey, I want to grow a plant there because it looks better. Plants typically grow in locations that suits them. So whether it's lighting or water current, you know, or maybe substrate depth, these are all things that really determine on whether or not a tank, you know, can support plants or whether or not it looks right. I don't build, or neither am I interested in award-winning landscapes. So when it comes to aquariums, I try to go with sort of a non-perfect natural appearance, because that's just the way it looks in nature. When you watch some of the videos or you go on hikes and you're looking at waterways, stuff grows where it can. It doesn't grow where it looks the best. It just looks cool, you know, when you finally come up on it and check it out, because, you know, nature basically produced that. Right, the rhinogobius colony, there's actually 3 of them in this tank. They are so cool and spend so much time interacting with one another, interacting with us. They are great little fish. Their appearances and colors have changed. In my opinion, besides the white cloud mountain minnows, these guys have really made the tank. They make it active. They keep the white clouds in motion. They also keep the white clouds in check. But they're also really, really cool and comical in the way they split up the tank. Each one has its own section. You got one on the left, one in the middle, and typically one on the right. And they've dug out the sand in different locations. Under there, where the green cobra, or the black cobra goby is, that location right there. I've actually thought that they've been spawning from time to time, but I've yet to see any fry, and you probably wouldn't see them. They probably would get picked off.
Hey, Dad.
Yes, buddy.
I know the original plants that, like, were the first top plants.
Go ahead.
The ficus.
Ficus was the first.
Yeah, this was the first ever.
Right.
I'm still trying to figure out what this.
Well, we've been told a couple times, but I forget. I'm so terrible with names of plants.
Yeah,
but
this plant,
yeah.
And then the big elephant here that slopes down into the water and comes back up.
The silver arrow elephant here. That's done really well. This plant right here, which was actually given to us by a guy who breeds discus. He had this in his aquaponics setup, and when he was breaking down his facility, you know, he was going to toss it. So I took it, planted it inside this paludarium,
And then they just grew off.
and then we planted it inside the South American paludarium, and it seems to be taking off here too. So this video is probably going to be a little bit of a long one, because we're going to talk about some of our other setups. So this is the South American paludarium, and this South American paludarium, we set this tank up. How old's this tank, Nate?
About a year old. I think it's a year old.
This tank turns a year in January. Can you believe that? This tank's a year old. I gotta tell you, my aquatic plant skills are not the best in the world. I just go with plants that I can't kill and that can grow under the lighting I use. And for example, in this tank, it's heavily dominated by chainsword and dwarf chainsword and Java moss.
Yeah.
And the Java moss, as you can tell here, is exploding. It just explodes. And if I could show you the light bulb I use without blinding you, put it on an angle.
Here,
It's just a standard household LED bulb that is 5500 Kelvin. The Kelvin rating is not even supposed to be the finest Kelvin rating for growing plants, but guess what? It grows not only terrestrial plants, but aquatic plants also. And this tank is the drill tank. This is a 20-gallon long with about a quarter of its height missing. So in essence, it's 13 It's 15 gallons of aquarium, but there's less than 13 gallons of water in this tank.
You can just call it 15-gallon one.
Pretty much. And then how many fish are in this tank, dude?
About, I don't know.
Just well over 25 fish in this tank, right?
Yeah.
And then the bottom system, this tank is dedicated to the cardinal tetras, which those guys, the neon tetras, and these guys are all hiding underneath the leaves. Neon tetras really like to congregate in the more shaded portions of the waterways.
Yeah.
And what I try to basically simulate is a flooded Amazon plain where, at one point it was dry, and then during the rainy season it expanded with the volume of water, and these fish would now get flooded into a field that would never have been underwater, and these guys will hide under different trees and leaves and grasses that, for a short period of time are exposed. But to get back into the South American Paludarium, once again, this is the sponge core that I use, which is based on gutter guard that you can buy at Home Depot and Lowe's. This is the product that you can actually put in your rain gutters to block leaves from getting in. But it's so porous. Look at all those pores. It acts as biological filtration, a place for biological filtration to colonize. So I use that, and I cut the formation out, and then I silicone that to glass. Then I pour expandable foam. Now, expandable foam will not stick to glass. So it'll stick to glass when it's dry, but as soon as you add water, it'll lift right off. I also put clay balls inside the expandable foam formation to act as substrate for the plants. Then we planted the plants in there. The formation goes all the way down the entire height of the back of the tank.
Now that was my idea, to cover it so it makes like a wall so you don't see the filter straight away.
Right, so what we basically created there was a weir, and the water will flow through plastic mesh right through and have access to the drain pipe to where it feeds into the bottom tank.
And you can barely see it. And
it becomes a closed loop system. So that's the South American Paludarium, and that tank is mainly filtered by the Eheim 2215, which drives the water via the spray bar back, sucks it up from the bottom tank, discharges it into the top tank, drops through the water flow, through the piping, back down,
gets sucked up. It goes over and over again.
And then that is your South American closed loop system.
Now, when we possibly make a website in the next few months, we'll probably be selling a lot of this.
We'll trim some. Yeah, we'll do our best to do so. This is the beta and tuta setup. These guys are doing well, feeding well. I just fed them brine shrimp. They're feeding on the Northfin cichlid pellets and the Northfin Krill Pro.
They're giant.
This is my favorite and first system. This is the wet dry filter, fluidized filter with the K1 media. There's about 5 gallons of K1 media in a 5-gallon bucket. You can hear it running. This is the wild caught bleeding heart tetras.
We have only one female.
Our Garami system.
Yep. The small ones are the males.
With
the three thick lips are the females.
Right, and the small ones are little baby honeys.
Yeah.
These are the cardinal tetras that are being medicated. One of them actually broke out. These are wild caught cardinals, so sometimes you're going to have issues with wild caught fish. So right now we're medicating them. They've been 4 or 5 days in the medication process. Everybody's pretty clean, but I'm going to continue now for the next complete probably 7 to maybe 14 days, and then we'll put them back in the system. We'll turn the system on. Right now they're basically
They're
cut off from the main system and basically in quarantine.
Yeah.
These are the wild betas. We'll talk more about these guys later on. So if you haven't already subscribed,
Please do so.
we'll shoot a separate video on the wild beta fish. I don't want to make this too long. Ron and Nate from FunctionBuilt-Aquatics. This is another quick tour and update of our fish room. Thank you very much, guys.
See you.
See you.